Right now at 5:30, we continue to follow the latest out of Iran. Protests have been taking place there for 3 weeks straight at this point. More than 500 people have died. Thousands more have been arrested. All of this as the U.S. weighs whether or not to get involved.
Joining us now to talk about the conflict, Benjamin Rad, UCLA political scientist. Professor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Mr. Rad, protests have spread to at least 190 cities all across the country of Iran. What triggered these demonstrations this time?
So it's a combination of factors, but it really began with economic conditions that got to a breaking point. It was a devaluation of the currency as a result of hyperinflation and economic mismanagement by the government. So you had employees who got, let's say, paid on a Friday, and by Monday, their paychecks were worth a third or half or a substantial amount less. And then there's shortages of water in the main cities. And then you have rolling blackouts. Beyond that, actually, just a failure to provide for the basic functional needs of the population. And then all of this comes together, resulting in what we've seen the last few days.
As you and I talked about just yesterday, when compared to past uprisings back in like 2022, this moment does feel different. Tell us why.
Yeah, so this one is crossing socioeconomic divides. You have the merchants, the bazaris in the main cities who have protested, who've gone on strike, who've shut down their stores, having an impact. These are the ones who tend to be regime loyalists oftentimes, or the ones who are the most sympathetic and willing to go along with the regime's policies. So they've had enough. You've had Gen Z, which has access to social media, is yearning for freedoms, especially the women. And for them, they had their grievances. And then the society as a whole, they're not getting the basic things they need to, the basic services, social services, like I said, water, electricity, the things that we take for granted for them are luxuries oftentimes. And so, again, mismanagement, corruption in the government, the elites benefiting from the system and everyone else suffering. This is why we're seeing what we're seeing.
Mr. Rad, if not this regime, what or who steps in to replace the existing group? Are we talking about the religious component here or the government side, or are they so intertwined?
Well, right now, there is no separation between the state itself and the religious apparatus that supports it. The supreme leader is the highest ranking Shia cleric in Iran, and he has ultimate authority over all functions of the state, even more so than the president does. So at this point, it is intertwined. Now, what would come next, maybe, if you even want to go there, would be, if the supreme leader were to step aside and there would be a committee or a cabinet or a council consisting of Revolutionary Guard members, those who are loyal to the system but not necessarily bound by the same rigorous rules that the supreme leader has imposed. But this is pure speculation because it's really unknown what direction any of this can take.
We know President Trump has threatened attacks if protesters are killed. We know there may be negotiations taking place between the two governments. What would Iran have to do at this point for the U.S. to back off? And do you believe the Iranian regime survives this moment?
So I'm not sure that the U.S. will necessarily back off, even if Iran meets its conditions. Now, the condition would be zero nuclear enrichment. This is something that was brought up last summer before the United States participated in that war that Iran and Israel were in. And the Iranians balked at that. They maintain that enrichment is their inherent right as a state, as a sovereign state. And so the United States would push back and say, you've now forfeited that right. If you want an end to this and you don't want us to intervene, then we're going to ask that you completely dismantle your nuclear program, no enrichment whatsoever. But that's a red line that the regime has said it's not going to cross. And then, beyond that, what would happen is, would the United States launch a strike? President Trump over the summer, on the one hand, he's negotiating. On the other hand, he's mobilizing and strategizing for a military operation. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what's happening right now.